What's happening, guys? Back with another reverse diet update. In this update, I'm not only going to give you an update on how things are going and the adjustments that were made this week, but I'm also going to talk about the best strategy, in my opinion, to maximize muscle protein synthesis to gain muscle. So, looking at the reverse diet from last week, all right, adherence was good. Weight came down on average about ½ pound, so things finally stabilized a little bit. I've been talking for the last couple weeks, feeling like my weight has been elevated a little bit and just hasn't been that accurate due to a number of different circumstances, and that prediction has finally come true. I wasn't really sure if it was going to happen or not, but it did finally come down and stabilize a little bit. So it's down about ½ pound from last week, which is still up about ½ pound from 2 weeks ago. And if you look back a few weeks prior, you know, I was kind of right around 171 the whole time, and now I'm just above 172. So right about where we want to be, or gaining a little bit, but not too fast. You know, making sure that I've got enough food to be building muscle, you know, at least efficiently, and in a good spot. So when I checked in with Paul this week, I was kind of expecting him to come back with another 10 carb increase, and what he actually said, what kind of surprised me a little bit, was, hey, I don't really think we need to add food unless you're still feeling hungry, then maybe we'll add some more. So as I mentioned last week, I'd been really hungry the previous 2 weeks. Like the hunger had really come through, and while it isn't as bad as it was, it has subsided a little bit. I am still kind of hungry, so I said, hey, like, whatever you think is best. Like, I don't think that a small increase is going to make a huge difference. So I'm up for whatever you think is best, but if you feel like we should hold steady here, by all means, let's hold steady. He thought, hey, well, you know, if you are still a little bit hungry, let's go ahead and increase. Maybe we'll actually do it through protein, because protein is more satiating, so protein will help you feel fuller. And I was actually really on board with this, because I've actually been going over my protein lately, which is why I wanted to talk about muscle protein synthesis. So anyway, before I get into that anyway, so we're adding 10 grams of protein this week instead of carbs, so that brings my protein up to 190, and I believe my calories up to 3120. So definitely eating plenty of food. I'm definitely not complaining about the amount of food I'm getting, even though I'm still kind of hungry. I know this is a pretty good amount of food. In fact, this is a great amount of food. If I think back to my previous kind of cycles of whatever I was doing, this is about as high as they ever got. Even when I got up to 210 pounds a long time ago, I was still right around these calories, maybe a little bit more, but I weigh like 30 pounds less at this point. And even at the end of my last building phase, I was at about 190 pounds, eating about this much. So metabolically, I'm definitely in a better position than I used to be. But anyway, the reason that I thought the 10 grams of protein would be good is because I've actually kind of been going over protein lately anyway, and I've just kind of been taking those extra calories from protein and taking them away from carbs. So I always try to equate calories. Calories is the most important thing, followed by protein. So we can do some interchanging of some macronutrients here and there. As long as we're equating calories, you're going to be good, especially between carbs and fats. Research has been really clear that as long as calories and protein are equated, whether you get the rest from carbs or fat, with regards to fat anyway, fat loss, it doesn't really matter. And with calories being this high, I'm getting an efficient or sufficient amount of carbs and fats anyways, probably not a big deal. I'm trying to be pretty accurate anyway, just with you know, I'm 11 months out now from my first show. I want to do everything I possibly can to be in the best possible position when that time comes, so I have that kind of motivation to be as diligent as possible. But I've been eating more protein because I've been trying to increase my protein meal frequency to be a little bit more optimal. So prior to this building phase, I had been eating 3 meals per day, 3 large meals. A lot of this had to do with digestion problems I was having, and I noticed that I did a lot better if I had 3 meals with no snacks in between and gave my body time to digest the meals. I just did better. But now that everything is kind of gotten a lot better and I'm in a better position digestion wise, and I know a heck of a lot more about my body and what works well with it and what doesn't, I wanted to challenge a little bit and try to increase my frequency. And the reason I want to do this is because I personally feel like when it comes to building muscle, the best thing to do for that is to spread out your protein pretty evenly throughout the day, 4 or 5 times, about 4 to 6 hours apart if possible. And this is to try to take advantage of the leucine threshold, which is kind of the amount of leucine that you can get in a meal to to use towards anabolism, so you can only use so much for anabolism at one time. And also I want to take into account this refractory period that's out there. I've done videos on this in the past, so I'm not going to get into a ton of detail. I will put a link on here as a card in the description below. I'll put it at the end of the video so you can look at this in a little bit more detail. But there's like a refractory period, it appears, where you can't increase protein synthesis again for a certain amount of time. So eating really frequent protein doses, like if you're eating every 2 or 3 hours, like a lot of people recommend, that's probably not very optimal if you're trying to build muscle, because you're probably getting some of that protein in during this refractory period where you can't increase muscle protein synthesis again. So it's better to be spaced out more, like I said, between like 4 to 6 hours, at least 3 hours in my opinion, apart, and spread that out 4 or 5 times throughout the day. And I try to get one early, so when I wake up, then around noon, and then I work out a couple hours after that, and then I have a post-workout shake, and then about an hour after that is when I eat my dinner. And I do that because I feel like a bolus of protein post-workout is still the kind of the most optimal thing to do. So there's the timing of that, and then my last meal is before I go to bed, which will be about 4 or 5 hours after that. So I'm trying to spread it out 4 to 5 hours apart, 4 times a day, with the 5th being that post-workout shake. So with that, it's hard to take 180 grams of protein, spread it out by 30 to 40 grams per serving 5 times, and stay within that 180 grams of protein. So I'm finding myself going over, trying to make sure that I'm maximizing as much protein as I can for as much anabolism as possible. So getting a little extra protein will only help with that. It'll help me now. It's essentially giving me more carbs, because I've been around 190, 195, 200 grams of protein anyway, taking the rest from carbs. So now that I can give that towards protein, I'll get the extra carbs that I wasn't getting and get that back up to about 410 that I should be at. So anyway, I wanted to kind of explain why that is, why I've been doing it that way, and what I think is the most optimal way to do things. Like I said, check out that other video for a little bit more detail as to why I think this is the best way to do it. And I say best in terms of like the research that we have seen, that we know about. You know, we can't prove it. At the end of the day, your total macros still matter the most. By far, it's not even close. Don't get tied up into timing if you don't even have any clue how much you're eating, or if you can't even hit your protein for the day. Don't worry about timing. Right? This is like kind of that next level thing that we can do, with that next step to try to get a little bit better results. But as long as you're hitting your protein for the day, you're 95% of the way there, right? That's gonna make the biggest difference. But there's some small things we can do to maybe get a little bit better results. That's what I'm doing right now. But like I said, if you're not really even hitting your protein, or you're struggling to do that now, get that down first, and then maybe you can take the next steps. So anyway, reverse diet's still going well. Still feel like I'm in a pretty good spot, still pretty lean, all things considered, and happy with things. So I have been a little bit just unmotivated lately. Like, I know the process is going well, but I just don't have a lot of drive lately. I think maybe part of it's the time of year, I'm not really sure. Just haven't really been feeling the best, but I don't think that's reverse diet related. Just kind of keeping it real and being honest, because you know, so often everyone talks about everything always looks like it's going great all the time. That's just not the case, right? Sometimes it's not going to go well, but you keep showing up anyway. Maybe it's not going to be as optimal. Show up, show up, show up, right? Survive the tough times, thrive during the good times. That brings long-term results. So anyway, side rant, I'm done. I will talk to you guys next week. Peace.
I'm addicted to the love that you're giving. Every minute, every day I've been craving.